The Daily Code Snippet. This past week we started to learn how to create tables with HTML. A table is a data structure used to organize information in rows and columns. With a table, one can quickly and easily look up values that make connections between different types of data. If correctly structured, then even those with visual impairments will be able to understand the tabular data. The one thing tables should never be used to do is to lay out a web page. This means the table is used to place the header and footer in the first and last rows, while the content is divided into columns in between. This was a common practice in the early web when browser support for CSS, Cascading Style Sheets, was poor. This is no longer an acceptable practice with the modern web. The main reason is accessibility. Screenreaders interpret the tags on a page, and if the tags are not being used appropriately, then the user will become confused. Tables are not automatically responsive, so to properly format a table that works across devices, you need to work with CSS styling and well-structured HTML. Because our focus is the structure of the table, we will discuss the details of CSS when we move on to the CSS section of this series. A table starts with a table element. To create a table cell, we use the table data element. TD stands for table data. Table data elements comprise a table row, a TR element. To create a second row, add additional table data elements and enclose them within another table row element. Finally, we enclose everything in a table element. This code will display as To make this more like a traditional table, we should add a special row that consists of table header elements. A table header element will identify the information found in the same column, and generally the initial cell in each row will identify the information in that row. Table header cells have a default styling associated with them. They will appear bold and centered. Next, we looked at the special case where we need cells to span more than one row or column. For this instance, you would need to use the colspan and the rowspan attributes that you can add to a table data or table header element. The value of a colspan or rowspan attribute is the number of columns or rows that the cell should span. With the value as a number, no quotes are needed. For this, we looked at this example code. It would display like this. The cell containing A Brown spans 2 rows. However, we saw that it was difficult to see the change without styling the table, so we had to add some CSS styling. In order to add CSS styling, we used the style element in the head of our HTML document. We added a 1-pixel solid line border in a gray color to our table data and table header elements. Then we learned how to collapse double borders to a single line. We emphasized the header row by giving it distinctive styling. We made additional changes to make the cells easier to read, like adding padding and adjusting the width of the table and columns. In this way, it becomes easier to see that there is a single cell spanning the rows and one instance of A Brown that is centered in that cell. We will finish up with tables next week and introduce forms at the end of the week if there is time. Presented by Designers Learn Code.